Good evening, everybody. We're going to get going in a couple of minutes. So if you can just be patient, we'll get going very shortly. If you're on YouTube, I can't see the chat, but you're more than welcome to watch it on YouTube, or I've given you the link so you can go ahead and register for this webinar so you can come in and chat. It's entirely up to you. All right, we're going to get going in a couple of minutes, just waiting for a few more people to arrive, and then we'll kick off. Thanks. Okay, everybody, thanks for your patience. We'll get going. So welcome to this evening's Forex Trading Live Market Analysis webinar with AUDJPY Securities. My name is Duncan Cooper. Thanks very much for attending. Before we move along, if you can just read through the risk disclaimer. And as we're going through the webinar, if you have any questions, just type them in. All right, moving along. If you don't know me, my name is Duncan Cooper. I'm a senior market strategist and trading mentor here at AUDJPY Securities. Full-time trader, been trading in the market now for more than 15 years, mentoring clients for more than 10. If you'd like to contact me, you can get me on the email address on screen, duncan.cooper@audy.com. And you can connect with me at our audy.com website at the Market News tab, YouTube channel, AUDJPY Securities Australia. And if you want to connect with me personally, you can get me on Twitter and LinkedIn there. And throughout the course of the week, I'm providing some analysis in the AUDJPY Securities Telegram channel. If you'd like to get access, just contact Nathan Bray at audy.com. I'll put his details in the chat in a moment. So in the Telegram channel, I'm providing analysis based around the lessons in the webinar series that we do to enforce and hopefully enhance your ability to trade. So if you'd like to get access to that, then simply contact Nathan. All right, with the beginner webinar series, we've got coming up tomorrow, MACD. So 7 p.m. Sydney time tomorrow, we're going to go through MACD and MACD divergence. Next week, Tuesday, we've got average true range and session opening times. I'll give you a further update what's coming up on the webinars at the end of this one. So let's get into the charts, and I'll bring my charts up. I'll just put into the chat. If you want to get access to my charts or the Telegram, simply give Nathan a contact. I'll give you his details. It's in the chat. Just contact him phone or email. He'll get back to you. All right, so my charts obviously look a bit different to the ones that you can download just straight from the AUDJPY Securities website, but just contact Nathan. And if you want to get access to my charts, he'll sort you out with that. All right, I'm just going to click through my 15-minute charts. Just want to refresh my memory what's going along. Market's already moved on some of these pairs. Just pairs I'm watching at the moment. All right. Nothing imminent that I would say is a setup. So what I'm going to do is just going to start with the dollar index and just going to discuss what's going on the dollar index and the S&P 500, or how that might affect the currency market. And then we'll get into the pairs that I watch at the moment. So just taking a look at the weekly chart here of the dollar index. In fact, I'm going to drop it down to the monthly. We're heading towards an area of resistance on the monthly chart of the dollar index, but the monthly trend is up. So it might have a bit of a pause here 139, so it's worth watching that area just to see what's going along. Do you start to see a rejection at that level? Weekly trend is up, and the daily today is testing that level. Now we could have a pullback from that level. If we did get a pullback from that level, look for broken resistance here to become support to keep the dollar index in its trend form. Okay, so if we do see a little bit of a reaction here, pullback, pairs to the US dollar would probably strengthen as that pulls back, but time will tell as to whether we have any pause there. Dollar has been very strong as of late. S&P 500, this is a day chart look, but over the major range here, we've had a pullback to the 79% level, just close to. Move back below the 62 level, showing lower tops and bottoms on the daily. And I did an analysis post yesterday in the Telegram service discussing, moving down the 4-hour chart here, discussing this area of resistance yesterday, 44.48, saying that if price will rally back up to that level, that area would be a good area to expect resistance for a move down. So I don't know if anybody took notice of that, but that was a good area to look for a sell. But overall, at the moment, what we're seeing on the US S&P 500 is an overall downtrend. And I would suspect if nothing changes too much, we're going to come down and retest monthly support down here at 42.68, and then further support down at 41.04. So lower tops and bottoms, we might be getting due to have a day up, or we might just come back for a further retest of that 4-hour resistance area at 44.48. So you can monitor that. Might come back up there for another further test. Hold and fail. All right, so US dollar strength, indices of weakness at the moment. All right, I just want to go to the dollar yen first of all, just to put pairs to the yen in perspective. Now the dollar yen at the moment, if we go to the monthly chart, it's today, if I squash this in a bit, we're testing this major high here. Back in somewhere like 2015. Yeah, June 2015, challenging the high here at 125.85. We're actually above it. We're trading at 126.08. So at a meteoric rise, and at the moment, nothing seems to want to stop the dollar yen. But as I noted last week, we're in about the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight week up. This candle here on the weekly, which shows it's down, I think I've got a incorrect price feed. So just disregard the fact that it's had a down week. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks up. So this is getting long in the tooth, this move. And you can see that we don't normally move that long for too long. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks up here. It's just worth noting. Let's just measure that. That move up there. All right, it's the one that we're looking at the moment. Just double check that. I want to do it from the break of the high. So break of that high just there. This is when I put moves often get repeated. So at the moment, we've still got some way to go if we want to match the last big one that I can see on the chart. But the point I want to make is that even if we do get up to the level of that measurement from that move here, this is well getting close to the end of that. So do you want to be getting in the end of the move? That's been my worry all the time as we've been approaching these resistance levels. So we're trying to move above that monthly resistance level at the moment. We've got another level, another daily level here that we've moved above this week. So if you're prepared to be a buyer on this pair, I don't know if it can stay above 25.85 in the short term, but any pullbacks really need to hold above the daily level of resistance that we broke above. Often when we're testing a monthly level, we'll go above it, we'll fall back below it, we'll go above it again. So I'm not concerned if we move back below that monthly top, but if I was a buyer or looking to be a buyer, then just moving down the timeframes, this daily top here at 125.09, we got a bit of support there yesterday. We traded a little bit underneath it on the 4-hour and came back above it. So any pullbacks at the moment really need to hold at 125.09. If we start to move below that level, that's going to be a little bit weak for the pair. So buying pressure really needs to hold at 125.09 if you're prepared to be a buyer on this pair. At the moment, I'm just on the sidelines with this pair. And on the 15-minute chart, after this pop-up above monthly resistance, we're consolidating here. So I'd expect that the 4-hour chart, draw a fib across the current upward move. Then if price keeps moving up, just keep moving your fib up. But then you're looking for a pullback. And that pullback will probably mean that price will come back below 125.85. 79% level, let's say that is the top up there. 79% levels down at the daily support level at 125.09. So I would be watching a pullback, and can 125.09 be support for the market for the next push up through 125.85. Now, of course, we might not pull back below 125.85. You can watch that tomorrow. Let's say we move up another 50 pips today. Then I'll be watching 125.85 to act as support, the monthly top that we've broken above. But I don't think we're far enough above it at the moment for this to act as support. Usually it will pull back to the 62, the 79. So that would mean price would need to come back below that level of resistance that we move through. So I would be watching, if I want to be a buyer, I will be watching 125.09. If you're on the sidelines and you're thinking this is way overextended now and you want to be a seller, really you have to look to the day chart and ask yourself for a clear sign. You need to see a lower top, lower bottom form. It's not doing that at the moment, and the MACD is not wanting to cross down. So at the moment, it's not giving any signal of a change in trend. This candle here that looks like a lower bottom, I think it's an erroneous chart feed. I don't believe it had a day down to there. It's just a very poor feed that came in on the chart. So at the moment, I'm disregarding that low because I don't believe it's true. And this is a higher bottom to a higher top. So on the day chart, if you want to be a seller, you need to see a lower top, lower bottom. Now, we are at a critical area of resistance that we're testing and breaking above today. There is the potential for failure there because that can often be what happens. But at the moment, price action is not showing a failure. So you have to decide for yourself, are you prepared to be a buyer with this pair moving up so far on a critical level of resistance? Or do you wait to see if a change in trend comes along? All right. So those are your options in that pair at the moment. For me, it's way too far up to be a buyer. And some of the other yen crosses are at least holding to the levels of resistance now. So if we do start to see a little bit of weakness on this pair, we might see some of the yen pairs moving down. So let's get into the Aussie yen. Excuse me one moment. All right, so just on the monthly chart, where we're at, the lines that I've got drawn in, this is actually a weekly high. If you go to the weekly chart, you'll see it. This top line here is just a daily level of resistance, and we're a long way from monthly resistance up here at 97.28. But the trend is quite clearly up there. We've moved through some monthly tops here, 1 and 2. And on the weekly chart, if I minus it in, then that's the weekly level that I've got drawn in, which last 2 weeks we've been rejecting and kind of closing out or below. At the moment, obviously, we're above it. And we've had a bit of a double top kind of scenario or a lower top form on the daily when we get there in a moment. But this is in an uptrend. But the day chart has been showing a little bit of at least a stall. We have a higher bottom. We put in a lower top at 94.15, just 15 pips short of 94.31, 16 pips short. So the question is, I'll be watching because I can see the MACD's crossed down. Is this going to, I know we've got another higher bottom coming in. Are we going to put in another lower top? Things are, a little bit mixed here, lower top, higher bottom. Can we put in another lower top? Are we at the extreme of where prices move to here on this pair? Time will tell. It's not giving me a strong enough signal yet to be a seller. If we finish today and then we break the low of today and trade down tomorrow, that might be a signal to sell because that will be the second lower top. MACD's crossed down now. You might want to look at the 4-hour chart. It's just holding to an uptrend, just. So, for me, I can't be a buyer here. I'm too close to this resistance area top here and this one over here. So I just have to be mindful of the position of the market. It's very close to resistance where we've been failing, even though the 4-hour structure is remaining up. I'd be more inclined to look for a failure. Can I see an opportunity to be a seller when we're up at the high levels here? All right, but it is holding to an uptrend, and this uptrend might just keep continuing up and gradually graze and grind through this day top here at 94.15 and the day top here at 94.31. But its cousin, the Aussie dollar, is trending down. So if the Aussie US dollar continues to trend down, if it gathers a bit of steam, and when we look at the New Zealand crosses, you'll see the story that I'm talking about now. If the Aussie dollar gathers steam to the downside, we'll see the Aussie Yen catching up to the downside. So at the moment, I'm just watching this pair, seeing what it can do at 94.15 daily resistance and 94.31 daily resistance. I'm very aware that MACD's crossed down. Very aware that we're overextended to the upside, and I'm very aware that the dollar yen at the moment's toying with a major high point. So if the dollar yen fails at the major high point, that's going to add some weakness to this pair. So don't trade this in line with what you're seeing on the dollar yen. If you see weakness on the dollar yen, it's going to start to translate into this pair. So at the moment, just watching, can I get a clear sign that this is going to fail here, or is it going to continue up? But I'm not going to buy at resistance. So if I'm going to be a buyer, I'm going to need to see a good setup, and I'm not seeing one at the moment. Aussie dollar, which is showing you the opposite look at the moment. We heavily rejected this monthly resistance area last week at 75.55. I'll take you to the monthly chart. Theoretically, we broke above that high, changing the trend up, but is it a false break? Are we going to be contained by monthly resistance here at the top and maybe trade down the range? The weekly last week put in a very negative weekly candle. We're having another week down. There was an outside reversal candle, having a week down this week. All right, now the weekly trend is up as well, but it's very negative, rejecting 75.55, that top there. Daily chart trend is turning down. We've moved to a lower point. This daily support level that was 74.56 is becoming resistance here. See how we rejected it yesterday on a retest. And today in the Telegram channel, I put in a post saying retest and failure of 74.56 could be a good level to trade down from today, and it's proven to be the case. Now MACD is trading down. So my bias is at the moment to look for this to move down to come down to weekly support here at 73.14. So failing at 74.56, we're looking for this to trade down at 73.14 weekly support. So the 4-hour, we had some positive price action after the US CPI yesterday and put the 4-hour structure into an uptrend, but that just meant that we had a day up. So I think we've had a day up and now we're probably going to continue down. So I'm disregarding the fact that I can see a 4-hour uptrend. I can start to see the fact that we came down and then we have put in a minor lower top here. It's not one with the dots across, but minor lower top to a minor lower bottom. So I'm thinking this is changing its trend back to down over the course of the next couple of days. On the 15-minute chart, we moved back below 74.56 and it became resistance. All right, so at the moment, 74.56 old support is now resistance. It was resistance Monday here. Became resistance here through late New York. Back to resistance again here at the start of Frankfurt. So any rallies, if you're looking to get maybe short on this pair, with what we're seeing, the rejection last week, look at 74.56 to be resistance at the moment. Once more, don't know whether it will come back up to that level. So if we continue down for the day, then tomorrow I'll be looking, if we have a nice continued trend down all day long, tomorrow I'd be looking for a rally tomorrow back to the central pivot point for failure. All right. If we just hang around here all day and don't go too far, I will be re-watching 74.56 to be resistance tomorrow. Okay. Euro Yen, it's a little bit difficult to trade. Trend is remaining up on the daily here. I've got a daily level of support drawn here, 134.51, that has held. A couple of more daily support levels forming there. And we're heading up towards to retest, go to the monthly chart to retest this monthly top. So some of these yen pairs are at critical monthly tops, like the dollar yen is slightly above at the moment. This is tested a similar top a week or two ago. It's coming up a little bit short this week of retesting. Is this forming a lower top here? Again, it's another one of these yen pairs that's way, way overextended. MACD's crossed down. Is this the last lurch up before we do top out for a while? All right. It's very difficult at the moment to sell the pair. It's not giving me anyway a true signal. And it's too high up for me to buy. So I'm just waiting for a healthy pullback to be a buyer. It has proved that it wants to get support here at 134.51. So if you're on the buy side of this pair, any pullback and holding at 134.51, that's clear support at the moment, it's been proven, then that's where you can be looked to be a buyer. Resistance has been proven at monthly resistance at 137.49. So if we come up to retest and fail once more, we might just find that we're going to hold between resistance and support on this pair. So trade between resistance and support. Trade a failure at resistance, down. Trade support, coming in at support to trade back up. Those are really the boundaries that you really should be looking to engage on, I think, on this pair. On the outskirts, where you know the levels have been proven, we have a proven level of monthly resistance and proven level of daily support. So if you can trade at the outskirts of that pair, those are your safest options. Right now on the 4-hour, it's a little bit mixed. It has broken a little bit of a minor support low there, but it's got a higher top there. So it's a little bit mixed. It's difficult to work out what you should be doing. That's why I'd much prefer to see it come up to resistance once more and fail, and then look to trade down or come down and support and hold and trade it back up. Right where it is right now, it's not in the perfect position. All right, Eurodollar has been a lot better. This is the day chart. And got quite a number of lines on here. There's old levels of day support through here that we've been breaking through. High levels of resistance here that aren't in the scope of things at the moment, but I've just got them on my chart. And really, yesterday, if you look at the high of the day chart candle, we retested 10900, which was this day support level. It's now become resistance. And we traded down, and we've been trying to move down to 108.06 weekly support. The question is, can we move through that over the course of time? So yesterday we had not yesterday, but the day before, we're one day up. It's the first day up since we've topped up here. And then we've had 2 days down. So the trend's just continuing down. It's a question of, I'm just pausing because something's in the chat. Slavia is saying, can we have a look at my practical example of the dollar yen? You have com. Yeah, if you want to type it in, then I'll come back to that pair later, okay? All right, so on the euro dollar here, question is, are we going to test 108.06? Is the trend going to continue down and move through 108.06? You go to your monthly chart, there's a monthly low down here at 106.35 that I'm using as my long-term target for a move down this pair at the moment. All right, so the 4 hour is just in a downtrend here. It's getting a bit of support close to 108.06, so it's been moving down to the area. And really, this little area of 4 hour support is starting to become resistance, as you can see here, kind of holding there. Now on the 50-minute chart, I've been looking to see if price can get up to the central pivot. What you'll notice yesterday is that we failed at the central pivot. If you've done my webinar on the central pivot in strong trend, price often just gets back to the central pivot before moving back in line with the trend. So we're in a downtrend. Yesterday we failed at the central pivot point, traded down. I've just been watching to see if this can get up to the central pivot point. As we can see today, it doesn't seem to want to get up there. So if it can't get up to the central pivot point, that just means that this pair's strongly in a downtrend. And if it's not getting up to the central pivot point today, I would be anticipating that we are going to come down and test 108.06. But if you're not in the pair and you want to sell, looking to see if price can fail at the central pivot point would be the best level to look for a trade, because to the left here, yesterday's lows intraday all kind of line up with where the central pivot point is. These intraday lows would act as resistance on a retest, on a test, not a retest because we haven't tested it yet, on a test of the central pivot point. So price might not get there. Price was here yesterday at New York, and you wouldn't have thought it would get up to the central pivot point and fail, but it does. So there's still time in the day for this to come up and give you a higher price to look to trade at, to trade down. All right, because you don't want to be trading too close to support. So trading up at the central pivot point or close to gives you 40 pips of room to come down, test support. Where we're at the moment, you've probably got 20 pips. So we're getting a bit close to support to start to engage in the sell, in my mind, but you'll need to work that out for yourself. So I'm just seeing if price can come back up to the central pivot point. Can it or not? Time will tell. But I'm anticipating that 108.06 may get tested and broken. If it gets broken, then look over the next trading week. Does 108.06 become new resistance if we clearly break it? All right. Pound yen. This has been trending up. I'm going to go to the monthly chart. It's broken above this top this week, 163.06. We're trading at 163.98, so clearly we're above that. Then there's this level of old support, monthly support at 163.87. We're 10 pips above that. So we can't say that's clearly broken yet, but we know it's challenging and trying to break above monthly resistance levels. All right. It's in an uptrend. The weekly chart's in an uptrend. We've had a very strong weekly rejection in the area that we're heading back into. So really, we're just trading inside this rejection week. So the question would be, as we get to the day chart, can we get above this resistance level? So that daily resistance is at 164.643. It is not in the area where you want to be a buyer, because obviously we're getting it to the top of the move. We're getting into resistance levels. Now price, if you got in down here where support came in, got in 1 or 2 days as it was bouncing up, then obviously you're just hoping that this will just keep moving up. But this isn't where you want to be buying. You don't want to buy at resistance where it's proven that it wanted to reject from last time. If you are already in a bought position, you're hoping this can trade through, but you need to obviously manage your trade very closely in case it wants to reject. All right. Now, I'm not seeing a signal to sell. MACD is not crossing down. If we do have a day down, we will start to form a lower top. So then that would start to catch my attention. So if we trade below the low, let's say the low on the candle today is the low of the day. Tomorrow, if you trade below that low, we'd be moving back below these levels of resistance. That would be weak, and that would start to catch my eye. And that could mean that we could trade back down to 159.04 day support. So watch what the dollar yen's doing. As I said, if that wants to sell off from its monthly high, this will start to come down the trading range with it. I'm just pausing because Slav's put something in the chat for me about the dollar yen. Or I'm just pausing and reading what Slav's telling me. All right, so you're telling me that you're short the dollar yen at 123.68. All right, so I'll just finish my commentary on the pound yen. Obviously, on the pound yen up here, it's at resistance, but it's still moving up. All right, so if you're in a long position, you need to manage it. Looking for a long position at resistance obviously isn't the key. And, you know, I'd be looking for maybe kind of lower top form, or if I want to be a buyer, I need to see a break above this area of resistance first of all, and then the resistance becomes support. So that's what I'll be watching on that pair. Just want to drop it down to the 15-minute chart. And just want to look at the 4-hour chart. 4-hour trend structure here is still up. There's a possibility that you could be drawing a fib in here. And, you know, if you're prepared to be a buyer in this area, you could be looking for a pullback within the fib range. That's the current fib drawn. 79% level, very much like on the dollar yen, lines up with 163.06. That's monthly support at the moment because we're above it. So if we do pull back to 163.06, monthly resistance / support, because it was resistance, now we've moved above it, could be support. If you want to be a buyer, watch that level. Can that hold as support intraday and move off? If it does, then that might be a level you could look for to be a buyer. You can see it became support here. But watch what the dollar yen's doing. If you start to see critical weakness on the dollar yen, then you're going to see the same weakness here. All right, so trade them hand in hand. If you see support coming in on the dollar yen at its 79% pullback, you're going to see the same kind of support happening there on the pound yen. If price keeps moving up, just keep dragging your fib up. All right, as I said, for me, this is too high up to be a buyer, but I'm not seeing a signal to sell. All right, so if you're prepared to buy in this area, maybe it will pull back to monthly support now at 163.06, get support for the next intraday move. Just going to go back to the dollar yen. So I'm going to look at Slav's question. 123.68. All right, so you sold around this level, 123.74, which is that monthly top there. And you're saying it costs about $30 a day in carry. And tell me what the drawdown is. Of course, you need to make your own decision, but if this top gets taken out, this next monthly top, we've got one monthly top it's taken out where you trade it at, and then the next monthly top is challenging. If that monthly top here becomes support, then, you know, if price action is telling you that you're wrong, how long are you going to hold into in a position that's not working out? That's the thing. You really have two options, and you need to decide which is the best option for you. If it moves above the level that we're watching at, and you can just look at that on the 4-hour chart, This 4-hour chart, if it keeps moving up a few more candles and pulls back and 125.85, a higher bottom forms on that level and shows that the 4-hour chart is showing support there for another move up. It's telling you it wants to move higher. So your options are obviously to get out of the trade, or you could hedge your position, which would, you take the same trade to the long side, but you create a hedge. So your buy doesn't cancel your sell, and then you have no more loss on your trade as price is moving up. And then you just wait for some sort of downtrend to form. You take your hedge off, and if you're fortunate, that downtrend might continue into a further longer term downtrend, and you can trade your position out. All right, that's three of those are your two options. If price wants to move above this last major high on the monthly chart here, the next monthly top's all the way up here at 135.16. How far do you weather the storm before you decide, okay, my position's not working? All right, so that's about as much as I can offer. Hopefully the 4-hour starts to pull back below that monthly top and then starts to come down. If the 4-hour structure doesn't turn to down, it's just telling you that the trend is continuing up. All right, that's as much as I can say on that. Let's get to the pound dollar now. All right, to my day chart. And if you follow in the Telegram channel, I'm just going to bring it up. At the start of every week, so if you're not in the Telegram channel, at the start of every week, I post 6 charts and a video commentary of the support and resistance that I'm watching, and I have them on the day charts. I do it for the Aussie Yen, Aussie Dollar, Euro Yen, Euro Dollar, Pound Yen, Pound Dollar. And you'll be surprised. Well, I'm not surprised, but if you're new to trading, you might be surprised. But the levels that I put on my charts, how often price respects the levels that I'm discussing. So on the pound dollar here, last week we failed at monthly resistance here at 131.68. That's a monthly low, but this is a day chart. See how we came up there and failed. And last week we were getting support at 130.51. And then this week we broke below that level, coming down to weekly support at 130. And now we've been trading between 130.51 and 130. It's going to move it down to the day chart, sorry, down to the 4-hour chart. As you can see here, we broke below day support at 130.51, down to the next support level, and then the broken level of support becomes resistance. And this is giving you 2 chances to sell down from 130.51 to challenge support. And we're still holding on support at the moment. So this weekly level of support, 130.100, whilst we're trading below it, is kind of offering support at the moment. So this pair is a little bit range bound. We'll move it down to the 1-hour chart. It's just holding a kind of just a downward structure, but it's been holding at 130.51 once, twice this week, holding at 130.100 support once here again yesterday. Just trying to erode through there, but you can see at the moment it's trading at 129.99, 130. Is this going to hold a support once more for another revisit of 130.51? Now, I don't like to be a buyer in a downtrend. Overall, this pair's in a downtrend. But what I'm trying to get across to you is last week, 130.51 was support. This week, it's now resistance. So if it comes back up to 130.51, it's proven to you twice it wants to be resistance. It could be resistance again. All right. So all I would be doing on the pound dollar is the day trend is down. Look at 130.51. Do we get another upsurge? Do you see price come up here and fail once more? for another move back down to 130. Okay. So if it keeps failing at 130.51, sooner or later it's going to break 130 because the trend will prevail and it will move downward. Okay. So just watch 130.51 at the moment on the pound dollar, because we are kind of still holding at 130. Now, we are starting to move a little bit below it intraday as the days are progressing. So if we actually do have a good day down today and clear 130, then start to watch 130 to become new resistance. All right, but I don't think we're quite at that stage on the pound dollar. So I would still be, if I want to be a sell on this pair, or looking at 130.51 to look for an opportunity to sell down. But today, we've been down to at the moment about 129.72. If we trade down to say 129.50, then I would start to expect 130 to become new resistance. All right, not quite in that frame of mind at the moment, but that's what I'm looking at. Still looking at 130.51 as resistance to trade down from, but if we get a clear break of 130, look at 130 to become new resistance. All right, because on your daily chart, it's just showing you lower top to a lower bottom. Okay, so 130.51 is clear resistance now. It's just struggling to get through 130 at the moment. If you break 130, long term at the moment, weekly support is at 128.54. So if we get a clear breakdown, it might move down to say 129. Look then for a rally for 130 to become new resistance. All right, so those are the two levels to watch, 130.51 and 130.100. All right. Because you could think the pound dollar is not that great to trade at the moment, but if you've just been prepared to wait to get back up to resistance, twice this week already, it's offered you two nice little trades down. Only about 50 pips worth of movement, but two relatively safe trades trading down from resistance. As you can see there, it's getting back above 130 as I'm talking. All right, New Zealand yen. Now, let's want to go to Forex Factory. Here we go. And today, we had the New Zealand official cash rate come out, and they were supposed to be raising. Anticipated raise was 0.25 base points, but we actually had 50 base points, double the rate hike. Now, usually that is positive, but on the New Zealand currency, every time it has a rate hike, it sells off. Now, usually it's a positive effect, but it's not being the case for the New Zealand crossies. So I'll cover the New Zealand dollar first, and then we'll go to the New Zealand yen. And you can see it's making fresh low right now. I actually posted in the Telegram channel today that after the interest rate decision to watch 68.90 to be resistance, went up to 6,900, 10 pips above, and then heavily rejected, and we've been going down ever since. And on the weekly chart, or even to the monthly chart, first of all, we're putting in a lower top here, I think. Lower top, lower bottom, putting in a fresh lower top. Even though interest rates are moving up, this thing just wants to keep to a downtrend. So what I saw last week was that we had an outside reversal week to the downside, failing at the 62% level. We're having a further week down. On the daily, yesterday we popped up and held at this weekly top here, 68.90. It's been resistance and support, turn back to resistance. That's why I was looking at that level today to act as resistance on any rally, because we held there yesterday, popped 10 pips above it, and then we've been going down ever since. So this isn't a clear downtrend, even though interest rates are rising. All right, so I'd look for opportunities to be a seller on this pair. So on the 4-hour chart, I'll just be waiting now for this to price cycle back up and give you the next lower top. I'll be dragging my fib down. Keep dragging it down as price moves down until you get a 62 or 79% rally. Okay. and then look for an opportunity to trade an intraday failure. I'm not prepared to sell that on the low of the day, on the low of the current move. I like to sell rallies. So it's not giving me a rally at the moment. I don't anticipate it's going to move back up to 68.90 because it's clearly sold from that level. But you're just looking for a lower top to form on the 4-hour. Rally, lower top. All right. This has got every opportunity of trading down, back down to where it came from. Monthly support, 65.27. All right. And we did Fibonacci this week in the webinar. This could move through the support level to the 127 extension at 63.46. So it's showing you a clear trend there to the downside based on the monthly chart and the day chart at the moment. Okay. This keeps moving down. If this drops down like to 67.50 today, tomorrow look at 6,800 to be resistance. Look for the figure to hold as resistance. Okay. Tomorrow. Right. This is heavily selling off. And I've got a question coming in about the New Zealand. I know. So what's the logic behind the New Zealand going down because interest rates are rising? I guess the logic could be two things. One, the market's anticipating that the US last week were discussing, some of the Fed members were saying that the US might be raising their interest rates at 50 base points. So I guess the market's anticipating that when the US has further interest rate hikes, that the interest rate differential will be higher on the US side to the New Zealand side long term. That could be one logical explanation. The other explanation could be that the market, even though the interest rates are going up, the market could be thinking that from New Zealand's economic perspective, the fact that they're raising interest rates is going to be detrimental to their economy. Obviously, they're raising interest rates to counter inflation, one would suspect, but is that then going to be detrimental to their economy? And then that's why the market's selling the currency. All right. Usually, yes, when we get a rate hike, the currency should be going up. Well, the currency that, when you look at a currency pair, the currency that's got the highest interest rate on the side of its currency usually is the positive side of the pair. But in this relationship at the moment, that doesn't seem to be the case. Now, you could say, well, I'm just going to trade the fundamental factors, but unfortunately, it always prices on, when you trade something, it always pays on what the price is, and price is going down. So it's great when the fundamentals marry with price, but at the moment, clearly, price wants to go down. So don't argue with it. All right. So I'm thinking that the market just thinks that higher interest rates for New Zealand, while it's counteracting inflation, is going to be detrimental to their exports and their ability to, create income for the country, I suspect. All right. All right, so with this heavy sell-off, like I was saying before, if we see a similar sell-off happening on the Aussie, then the Aussie Yen, that will help the Aussie Yen top out, because what we're seeing on the New Zealand Yen, we go to the monthly chart, whilst the monthly trend is up, last month's top and this month's top at the moment is held at this old monthly top at 86.40. Last 3 weekly candles are rejecting 86.40. Still in an uptrend, but it's giving you the signs that it wants to put in a weekly top, maybe. And the daily, whilst we put in a higher top, it's clearly rejecting. So I don't anticipate that this pair might come back to 83.90, which, we refresh my memory, 83.90 is a monthly top here that we've moved through. So we could well be moving back down to see whether 83.90, an old monthly top, can act as support. All right. I mean, we do have a higher top, higher bottom, but quite clearly you can see a heavy rejection at the monthly resistance level in the face of higher interest rates. So I'm anticipating that this will want to trend down in the short term. Now, if the dollar yen actually does decide to sell off, whether it does or it doesn't, time will tell at its major high. Because this is out of the yen crosses that I'm looking at today, the major yen crosses, the weakest one is obviously the New Zealand yen. So if we suddenly start to see weakness on the dollar yen and yen strength comes in, this is the weakest one at the moment. So this will then really trend down. So that's worth watching, what happens. Does the yen strength come back? Because if it does, that's really going to help this trend down. And this will probably be one of the stronger pairs to the yen that moves down in the short term with that New Zealand dollar moving down. All right. So for our structure on this pair hasn't quite yet turned down. Needs to break this support low in the middle here, 85.37. So I'd be looking for a rally and a failure at some point over the next 24 hours. I mean, this could come back up to retest A640 if it really wants to, but you just have to watch price action and see what it does. And you have to watch it in relationship to what the dollar yen's doing too. Obviously, this is at its low of the day, where the dollar yen's nowhere near its low of the day, because this is just following what the New Zealand US dollar is doing at the moment. And getting asked, should we expect to see acceleration downtrend when New York opens? What, on the New Zealand US dollar or New Zealand yen? Well, we've already done the range for the day. I'm going to cover that next week. Next Tuesday's webinar is on the average true range. We've already done the range for this pair for the day and more. The distance between that blue line and that blue line is the average true range for the 5 days. We've already exceeded that, so I don't know if this can really go down too much further for the day. So no, I don't know if we'll really go down too much more today on the New Zealand crosses. We could, but for me, I don't like to trade near the low of the day. I'd like to see, if I'm using the New Zealand yen example, draw a fib from high to low. I'd much prefer to see this have a rally now up to a 62 or a 79% level. 79% level overlaps with the monthly resistance, and sell a rally. I'm not going to try to entertain selling the low point, because we're getting close to the low of the day, and then I'll have a bounce. So if I sell near close to the low of the day, then it's going to go against me. All right, so that's not going to work well for me. So yes, we could continue down for another 50 pips if it really wants to, but logically, it's already done the range for the day, more than exceeded the normal range for the day. I would expect a bounce. So I want to look at these pairs tomorrow. If we're going to see a strong trend again tomorrow, downwards on these pairs, as I keep saying, in a strong trend, price will only rally back to the central pivot point, hold, and then move back in line with the trend. So what's the central pivot points tomorrow? Does price hold and fail at central pivot points on the New Zealand crosses tomorrow? All right. So those are the pairs I wanted to go through this evening. Any more questions before we wrap things up? Just want to click back through and see what's going on intraday. The Aussie dollar's just continuing down, slowly but surely. Euro yen's not doing too much at the moment. Euro dollar may well come up here and give central pivot point a test. Could get the same thing that happens early New York, like yesterday. We've got some news coming out 10:30 in New York time. We've got the PPI and core PPI coming out. So we might see, price pop up to a higher level for these, for example, on the euro US dollar. 12 o'clock, we do have the Canadian interest rate decision. If you trade that pair, be aware of that. All right. Yes, tomorrow we do have the Aussie unemployment rate and the euro interest rate decision tomorrow evening. Be aware of those. So we've got pound dollar. So pound can't exist below 130 at the moment. might come, if we get a bit of positivity, negative news from the US at 10:30, this could well get back up to 130.51, give you another opportunity to trade down, okay? Right, early New York, this was trading at 130.06. Pops back up to 2-3 candles later, pop back up to 130.51, and then traded back down. So wouldn't surprise me to see that back up there. Now you might think, well, if it's going to get back up there, should I buy it? But I don't buy against the trend. The trend is down. All right. So I can trade down from resistance in my mind with the trend. I can't buy up from support because that's against the trend. Because sooner or later, trying to buy up from support against the trend, you'll get a short-term bounce on support and it'll break. So I like to trade the odds, and the edge that's going to give me a much more positive result, and the edge that's going to give me a much more positive result on the pound is to look for another failure at 130.51. I'm not trying to buy up from 130.100 because it's just getting below that level more and more as it trades through the level. It gets down a little bit deeper. So sooner or later, we could be collapsing through that area. All right. All right, everybody, if you're on YouTube, I can't see the chat, but thanks very much for listening in. If you're on YouTube, if you want to join us at the webinars, we've got one more coming up for this week. I'll just bring the webinar page up. Tomorrow, I'm going to go through MACD and MACD divergence. All right. And if you head over to the webinar page, you can then come along and see what's coming next week too. Next Tuesday, average true range session opening times. Next Wednesday, more live market analysis. Next Thursday, going to go through a new webinar that we haven't delivered before, identifying high probability trading levels using the monthly and weekly candlestick highs and lows. All right, so that's what's coming up over the next tomorrow and then the next week. If you've got the time, love to see you at those webinars, okay? Before then, hopefully you got some good levels that you can watch and trade around from my analysis this evening. And with that in mind, thanks very much for attending. Stay safe. And I look forward to seeing you next time.